Bonjour, maintenant la séance. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Bienvenue à la réunion.
Welcome to meeting number 107 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Public Accounts.
Pursuant to the standing orders, members are appearing both in person, in the room, and remotely using the Zoom application. Reminder that all comments should be addressed to the chair. Conformément à l'article 108.3.
Pursuant to Standing Order 1083, the committee resumes its study of Report 1 Arrive Can, referred to the committee on February 12, 2024.
I'd now like to welcome our witnesses from the Office of the Auditor General, Andrew Hayes, the Deputy Auditor General, Sami Hanoush, Principal. Good to see you both again. Seeing you more than my spouse recently, it seems. From the Department of Public Works, which is a good thing on behalf of taxpayers. From the Department of Public Works and Government Services, Arian Reza, Deputy Minister. Pardon me, it's been a long week already. It's good to see you. Thanks for coming in today. Catherine Poulet, Assistant Deputy Minister, Departmental Oversight Branch. Dominique Laporte, Assistant Deputy Minister, Procurement Branch. And our two lead principals will each have the floor for 5 minutes, as is custom. I'll turn to the Office of the Auditor General first. Mr. Hayes, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Monsieur le Président, merci de nous inviter.
Mr. Chairperson, thank you for inviting us back to discuss our audit report on the Arrive Can application that was tabled on February 12th. I'd like to acknowledge that this hearing is taking place on the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. I'm accompanied today by Sami Hanoush, who was responsible for the audit. The audit examined whether the Canada Border Services Agency, the Public Health Agency of Canada, and Public Services and Procurement Canada had managed all aspects of the Arrive Can application with due regard to the value that would be derived, i.e. value for money. I'll limit remarks today to the role played by Public Services and Procurement Canada. The department was to issue and administer contracts on behalf of the CBSA and the Public Health Agency of Canada, where the value of a contract exceeded their delegated procurement authority. We found that Public Services and Procurement Canada had questioned the CBSA's decision to use non-competitive processes to award Arrive Can work. It did suggest alternatives such as shorter non-competitive processes or competitive processes with shorter bidding periods. Despite this advice, the agency decided to proceed on a non-competitive basis.
We also reported that the Canada Border Services Agency's overall management of the contracts was very poor. Essential information was missing from awarded contracts and other documents, such as clear deliverables and the qualifications required of workers. We found that contrary to Public Services and Procurement Canada's supply manual, the department co-signed several task authorizations drafted by the Canada Border Services Agency that did not detail task descriptions and deliverables. Without this information, it is difficult to assess whether work was delivered as required and completed on time while providing value for money. Public Services and Procurement Canada also co-signed many of the agency's amendments to task authorizations. Some amendments increased the estimated level of effort or extended the time period without adding new tasks or deliverables. This drove up the contract's value without producing additional benefits. To deliver value for dollars spent and support accountability for the use of public funds, the Canada Border Services Agency and Public Services and Procurement Canada should ensure that tasks and deliverables are clearly defined in contracts and related task authorizations. Mr. Chair, this concludes my opening statement. We would be pleased to answer any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
Reza, you have the floor for up to 5 minutes, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. As the Deputy Minister of Public Services and Procurement Canada, my team and I are here to continue the important discussion about the Auditor General's report into the development of the ArriveCAN application. I'm joined today by Dominique Laporte, Assistant Deputy Minister for Procurement, and Catherine Poulin, Assistant Deputy Minister for Departmental Oversight. During the pandemic, my department played a key role in keeping the work of the Government of Canada going, as well as providing key support to provinces and territories. We are particularly proud of our role with regards to the urgent procurement of critical supplies and life-saving vaccines. PSPC has been part of 2 large audits since the pandemic, one related to the procurement of personal protective equipment and the other to the procurement of vaccines. These audits found in general that the controls and the procurement process worked as they should. However, in the case of ArriveCAN, both the Auditor General and the Procurement Ombudsperson have identified areas where we need to strengthen our oversight, notably related to documentation and to our procurement processes of IT consultants. We accept these recommendations in full and have already put management actions in place to strengthen our processes.
On improving and further strengthening our processes, especially when it comes to IT procurement, and we've been working since the fall to do just that. Actions we've taken to date include improving evaluation requirements to ensure resources are properly qualified, requiring increased transparency from suppliers around their price and their use of subcontractors. Third, improving documentation when awarding contracts and issuing task authorizations. Fourth, clarifying work requirements and activities and specifying which activities and which projects are worked on by contractors. In addition, my department is updating its guidance to aid other departments and agencies in procuring responsibly when using our procurement instruments under their own authorities. And finally, PSPC has also taken measures to appoint a senior executive who will be responsible for quality assurance and strengthening documentation within PSPC. Fundamentally, improving IT procurement requires us to ensure those processes are clear and transparent, and that the roles, responsibilities, and rules are understood and respected and adhered to. This includes working closely with the Treasury Board Secretariat and client departments and agencies to ensure that procurements are undertaken in a manner that respects the principles of fairness, openness, and transparency. In this regard, both the Treasury Board Directive on the Management of Procurement and PSPC's Supply Manual stipulate the division of roles and responsibilities. For example, departments, our clients, are responsible for providing a justification for using non-competitive procurements. In the case of procurements related to ArriveCAN, the Auditor General's evaluation found that PSPC effectively provided a challenge function to the CBSA and proposed various alternatives to using non-competitive processes, such as running shorter competitive processes or shorter contract periods in the case of the non-competitive approaches. Within the context of the emergency situation brought on by the pandemic, PSPC and our legal counsel found that the justification provided by the CBSA for their approach was sufficient and met the criteria for emergency use. When it comes to the lack of transparency around decision-making, we are committed to addressing the root causes, strengthening document management practices, and continuing the deployment of our electronic procurement solution, so that transparency in decision-making is ensured and Canadians, parliamentarians, can have renewed confidence in the administration of federal procurement activities. New measures that we've put in place have already addressed a number of these areas, and we continue to take action to further strengthen the procurement of IT services. En terminant, je sais que les médias...
In closing, I know that there have been many concerns raised in the media and in parliamentary committees regarding federal procurement and the integrity of the system. We do share those concerns and are actively working to improve the procurement system, as well as undertaking required investigations where warranted. The area of procurement is one that inherently has higher levels of risks associated with in terms of conflicts of interest. And that is why the government requires of all its suppliers, their subcontractors, and all employees to operate lawfully and in a responsible manner by, at a minimum, meeting the expectations and obligations set out in the Code of Conduct for Procurement. For federal public servants, those expectations and obligations are outlined in the Code of Values and Ethics. These codes provide important underpinnings and guiding principles for the work that is done in procurement, and ensuring respect and adherence to these codes is of the utmost importance. Our actions will help reinforce the adherence to the codes, improve the way that we do business with companies, and further safeguard the integrity of the procurement system. Thank you.
Et voilà, merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
Bradford, I saw you had your hand up. It's not up now. Did you have a point of order? Okay, just wanted to double check that I didn't miss you. Turning now to our opening rounds. Thank you very much for your opening remarks. MP Kuzi, you have the floor for 6 minutes, please.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président,
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson.
for being here today. Again, thank you very much to the team of the Auditor General for your fantastic report. Madame Reza, I'm glad to see you're in better health this week. Thank you very much for being here. This has not been a good week so far for the Liberal government. In the meeting that I attended yesterday, we had the Treasury Board Secretariat, including the Comptroller of Canada, agree with the Auditor General and her report that Canadians did not receive value for money for their report. I was also very proud of my team that pushed on the issue of the government employee that received $8 million for ArriveCan, while at the same time working in the public service, something that should have never have happened, as well as the motion that was passed yesterday by my team in support, with the support of the committee, to ensure that we are aware of all of the public servants who might potentially be in conflicts of interest with their role in serving the Canadian people. We have a wonderful public service, but of course we must always ensure that there is no conflict of interest. So this has not been a good week for the Liberal government and a rise scam, and this is evidenced by the media reports today of, unfortunately, the government members being triggered by the use of the word arrive scam. But today I'm going to focus my questions on the national security exemptions, because we have determined already that there was not a value for money for Canadians. So now I'd like to turn to another important aspect, which is the national security exemption. So in April 2020, your department invoked the national security exemptions to grant GC Strategies, a company that I should add should be entirely banned from contracting with the Government of Canada, a $13.9 million uncompetitive contract on behalf of the CBSA. Why did your department feel that GC Strategies was the only company that was able to complete the work necessary on ArriveCan for such a significant amount of money?
Thank you very much for the question, Mr. Chair. I think that first we need to look at the national security invocation. This is a tool that exists in the trade agreements to give Canada the ability, in case of crisis, to be able to move quickly outside of the current competition. So each trade agreement allows this. So there is not a one-to-one relationship between the NSC and GC Strategies. Rather, the Public Health Agency, CBSA, various departments came forward and said because of the global pandemic, they had a need to move quickly, and they would ask us at PSPC for that authority. And in the consultation with legal counsel and PSPC, invocations or national security exemptions were granted, and that does not mean or guarantee a sole source strategy or any procurement process. I'm just going to pause here because I have an expert in NSCs with me in case Dominique?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that response. Just a reminder again, and I repeated this yesterday, I'll say it again today, that the Auditor General did stress in her remarks, my goodness, close to a month ago now, this is how long her report has resonated with the Canadians, the truth of it, that the pandemic, the crisis situation was not an excuse for the lack of the value for money. I'll follow up on my question, Ms. Reza. In the letter the CBSA CFO wrote to you for the national security exemption, he stated that this contract would be necessary for 3 months to improve low-touch IT. Why would any company need $13.9 million for 3 months of work?
Thank you very much for the question, Mr. Chair. I believe